The fog was rolling in off the Pacific that morning, thick and gray, swallowing the rocks at the base of the cliffs. I stood on my deck, coffee in hand, watching the waves crash against the shore. October, on the Oregon coast. The storm season was starting, and I loved it. The power, the noise, the reminder that nature doesn't care about your plans or your problems. I'd been living in this bungalow for 4 months now, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. After Linda died, after I retired from 32 years at Providence Hospital, after I sold our house in Portland, this place was my answer to the question everyone kept asking. What now, Michael? This. Just this. The ocean, the cliffs, the quiet. The bungalow wasn't much. 1,500 square feet, 2 bedrooms, a garage I was converting into an art studio. Linda had always wanted to paint. She'd talked about it for years. How she'd take classes once we retired, how she'd set up a studio with north-facing windows and spend her mornings with watercolors. Cancer took her before she got the chance, so I was building it for her. Ridiculous, maybe, building a studio for a dead woman, but it felt right. It felt like keeping a promise. I joined a painting class in Cannon Beach. I wasn't any good, but that wasn't the point. I'd befriended the neighbors, Victor and Martha, a retired lawyer and his wife who'd lived here for 20 years. I'd started hiking the trails along the headlands. Some mornings I'd drive into town for breakfast at the cafe, sit at the counter, chat with the regulars. Most days I stayed here, listened to the ocean, read books I'd meant to read for decades. I thought I'd finally made it, the clean exit, the peaceful retirement you hear about but rarely see. Then my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but it had a Portland area code. I almost let it go to voicemail, but old habits from decades of hospital emergencies made me answer. Michael, hey, it's Ryan Martinez. I knew who Ryan was, my daughter Emily's ex-boyfriend. They'd dated for 5 years, broken up about 6 months ago. Nice enough guy, I'd thought, though a bit too slick. Too many big ideas, too much talk about cryptocurrency and passive income. Linda had never trusted him. She'd said he smiled too much, that people who smiled that much were usually hiding something. Ryan, I said, how are you? Good, man, really good. Hey, I heard you bought a place on the coast. That's amazing. Really happy for you. Thanks. Look, I wanted to reach out because I have this opportunity, a business thing, and I could really use some advice. You know, from someone with your experience. There it was, the setup. I'd worked in hospital administration long enough to recognize a pitch. What kind of business? Real estate tech. We're developing an app that uses AI to predict property values, help people time their investments. It's blowing up, Michael. We've got investors lined up, but I need to show them we have serious people involved, you know? People with credibility. I see. So, I was thinking, would you be willing to come on as an advisor? Just on paper, you wouldn't have to do anything, and obviously, I'd make it worth your while. Once we go public, early advisors are looking at serious returns. Ryan, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm retired. I'm not interested in business ventures. I get it. I totally get it. But here's the thing. I actually need something more immediate. Just a small loan, $15,000, to cover some legal fees. The lawyers won't file the incorporation papers without payment up front. I'd pay you back with interest as soon as the funding round closes. Probably 2-3 weeks max. $15,000 to a 30-year-old whose last business idea, as far as I knew, had been selling NFTs of inspirational quotes. Ryan, I can't do that. Come on, Michael. I helped Emily move, 4 times. I was practically family. This is just temporary. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't good for it. The answer is no. There was a pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, sharper, more focused. Emily said you'd help me. Emily said what? She said you had money sitting around, that you were just, retired, with nothing to do. She thought you'd want to support her, support people who matter to her. I hadn't talked to Emily in 2 weeks. She was busy, new promotion at her marketing firm, always traveling. But I couldn't imagine her saying that. I need to go, Ryan. Fine. But when this takes off and I'm on the cover of Forbes, don't come asking for a piece. He hung up. I stood there on the deck, watching the fog, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Something wasn't right. The way he'd mentioned Emily. The way he'd gone from friendly to hostile so quickly. I called my daughter that evening. She sounded stressed, distracted. "Hey, Dad. What's up? I got a call from Ryan today." She was quiet for a moment. "Oh God, what did he want?" "Money. He said you told him I'd help." "I never said that." "Dad, I'm sorry. He's been bothering me for weeks, asking about you, where you moved, what you're doing. I told him to leave you alone. Why would he think I'd give him money?" "Because he's desperate. His last 3 business ideas failed. He owes people money, real money. He's been calling me every day, sometimes multiple times, asking me to co-sign loans, to invest in his projects. I finally had to block his number. Is he dangerous? I don't know. He threatened to sue me last month for emotional damages from the breakup. Can you believe that? His lawyer sent me this ridiculous letter saying I'd made promises about our financial future and then abandoned him. It was insane. Did you get a lawyer?" "I did. They said the suit has no merit, but it's still stressful. Dad, please don't give him anything. He's not the person I thought he was." After we hung up, I sat with that for a while. Threatened to sue Emily for emotional damages. That wasn't desperation. That was manipulation. Maybe worse. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not from Ryan, from something called Cascade Innovations, LLC. It was addressed to me, Michael Chen, at my bungalow address in Cannon Beach. The letter welcomed me as an investor in their groundbreaking real estate technology platform and requested that I complete the attached paperwork to finalize my advisory role. I read it 3 times. Investor, advisory role. I'd never heard of Cascade Innovations. I certainly hadn't agreed to be an investor or advisor. I called Victor, my neighbor, the retired lawyer. He came over that afternoon, read the letter, and pulled out his laptop. "Let me look this up," he said. He typed for a few minutes, clicking through screens, his face growing more serious. "Michael, this LLC was registered 3 weeks ago, and according to the state records, the business address listed is your address here in Cannon Beach." "What?" He turned the laptop toward me. There it was. Cascade Innovations, LLC. Registered agent Ryan Martinez. Business address 47 Seacliff Drive. My address. "How is this possible?" "He filed the paperwork using your address. It's fraud, plain and simple." "Has he ever been to your house?" "No. Emily and I always met them in Portland when they were dating." Victor kept typing. "His website went live yesterday. Let me pull it up." The website was slick, professional. Ocean views, graphs, testimonials. And right on the homepage, photos of property. My deck, my view, my garage studio, still half finished. A caption read, "Our headquarters in beautiful Cannon Beach, where innovation meets inspiration." I felt sick. "He's using your house as proof of legitimacy," Victor said, "making it look like he has assets, infrastructure. And look here, he's taking investors. There's a form to schedule consultations. I need to stop this. You need a lawyer. A good one. And you need to document everything." Victor made some calls. By the end of the day, I had an appointment with an attorney in Portland named Rachel Park, someone Victor trusted. She'd handled corporate fraud cases before. I sent her everything: the letter, screenshots of the website, the LLC registration, the text messages from Emily about Ryan's threats. Rachel called me back that evening. "Mr. Chen, this is serious. He's committed multiple counts of fraud, using your address without permission, representing you as an investor without consent, potentially taking money from people based on false pretenses. We'll send a cease and desist immediately, but I need to warn you, if he's desperate enough to do this, he might escalate." "What do you mean?" "People like this don't stop when you say no. They double down, change your locks, install security cameras, and keep a record of every contact." I drove to Home Depot the next morning, bought new locks, installed them myself, bought a security camera system, 2 cameras, one covering the front door, one covering the driveway. Synced it to my phone. Felt paranoid and justified at the same time. The cease and desist went out certified mail. Rachel sent me a copy. It was thorough, demanding immediate removal of all references to me, return of any funds obtained through fraudulent representation, acknowledgement of criminal liability. 3 days later, my phone rang. Ryan, Michael, I got your lawyer's letter. I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. You used my property and my name without permission. Okay, look, I made a mistake with the address thing. I thought Emily had cleared it with you. She used to give people your address when we were together. Said it sounded more professional than my apartment. That's a lie. Whatever, man. The point is, I've already got investors. Real people who gave me real money because they believe in this project. If I cancel now, I'm ruined. Can't we work something out? I'll give you 10% of the company, just for letting me keep the LLC address registered there for a few months. No. Michael, please, I'm begging you. Linda would have wanted you to help me. Emily told me Linda always said families should support each other. Don't you dare use my wife's name. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm just saying. If you contact me again, I'm reporting this to the police. I hung up, hands shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Rachel had said. If he's desperate enough to do this, he might escalate. I got up around midnight, made tea, sat on the deck despite the cold. The ocean was loud, waves crashing in the darkness. This was supposed to be peaceful. This was supposed to be my refuge. The next morning, Victor knocked on my door. Michael, I did some more digging. Ryan Martinez filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago, and according to court records, he's being sued by his former business partner for embezzlement. There's also a judgment against him from a credit card company, $42,000. He's drowning. Yes, and your property is his lifeboat. A week passed. The website stayed up despite the cease and desist. Rachel said we could file criminal charges, but it would take time. Meanwhile, I started getting emails from people who'd found my contact information through a reverse address lookup. Potential investors asking about Cascade Innovations, about the promised returns, about when they could tour the headquarters. I forwarded everything to Rachel. She documented it all. Then, 2 weeks after the cease and desist, Victor called me at 7 in the morning. Michael, turn on your security camera. There's someone at your house. I opened the app. A car was parked in my driveway, a silver Audi. Ryan was standing at my front door, trying the handle. It didn't open. New locks. He knocked, waited, knocked again. Then he walked around the side, tried to peer in the windows. He went to the garage studio, tried that door, locked. He stood there for a minute, looking around my property like he was evaluating it. Then he pulled out his phone, took photos of the studio, the deck, the ocean view. He was wearing a suit, professional, like he was here on business. I called Rachel. Don't engage, she said. Call the police right now. This is trespassing and possibly stalking. I called 911. Explained the situation. They said they'd send someone. 10 minutes later, I watched through the camera as 2 Cannon Beach police officers pulled up. Ryan walked over to them, all smiles, handshake, gesturing at the house like he belonged there. They talked for a few minutes. Then one officer came to my door. Mr. Chen? I'm Officer Davis. We have a Ryan Martinez here claiming he has permission to be on your property for business purposes. Can you clarify? He doesn't. He's never had permission. My lawyer sent him a cease and desist 2 weeks ago, specifically telling him to stay away from this address. Can you show me documentation? I pulled up the emails on my phone, showed him the cease and desist letter, the LLC fraud, the website photos. Officer Davis read it carefully, then went back to Ryan. More conversation. I watched Ryan's body language change, defensive, arms crossed, shaking his head. Finally, the officer came back. We've informed him he needs to leave immediately and not return. If he comes back, call us right away, and we'll arrest him for criminal trespass. Do you want to press charges now? I looked past him to Ryan, standing by the Audi, staring at my house with an expression I couldn't quite read. Anger, betrayal, desperation. Not right now, but I want this documented. It will be. You'll have a case number. They waited until Ryan drove away, then followed him to make sure he left the area. I called Emily. She answered on the first ring. Dad, are you okay? I just had Ryan removed from my property by the police. Oh my God. What happened? She listened as I explained. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Dad, I need to tell you something. Ryan called me yesterday. He said if I didn't convince you to drop the lawsuit, there is no lawsuit. But he kept calling it that he'd release our private photos online. Photos from when we were together. That's extortion. I know. I called my lawyer. She's handling it. But Dad, be careful. He's not thinking clearly. When I was breaking up with him, he punched a hole in my wall. I had to get a restraining order. He's not stable. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, feeling the weight of it. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. This was about someone unraveling, someone who'd lost all boundaries. I called Rachel again. We need to escalate this, she said. I'm going to contact the district attorney. With the trespassing, the threats to Emily, the ongoing fraud, we can build a criminal case. 2 days later, I got a call from a woman named Jennifer from Adult Protective Services. Mr. Chen, we received a report of concern about your welfare. Excuse me? An anonymous caller stated you might be experiencing cognitive decline, living alone in an isolated location, potentially in unsafe conditions. We're required to follow up. I felt my jaw tighten. Who filed this report? I can't disclose that information at this time, but we'd like to schedule a wellness check. I called Rachel immediately. This is retaliation, she said, malicious and transparent. But you'll need to cooperate with the wellness check. Show them you're perfectly fine. Then we document this as harassment. Jennifer came out 3 days later. She was professional, apologetic even. We sat in my living room. She asked me questions about my daily routine, my medications, my social connections. Could I remember 3 words after 5 minutes? Could I count backward from 100 by sevens? Could I draw a clock showing 3:15? I answered everything. Showed her the art studio I was building, the painting class certificate on my fridge, Victor and Martha's number as emergency contacts. She looked around, saw a clean, organized home, saw a man who was managing perfectly well. Mr. Chen, I see no cause for concern here. You're clearly doing well. I'll file a report stating that. And off the record, the caller identified himself as Ryan Martinez, claimed to be your daughter's former partner. Said he was worried about you being isolated after your wife's death. Thank you for telling me that. After she left, I called Rachel again. We're building a strong case, she said. False welfare reports, trespassing, fraud, harassment. If he continues, we can get a restraining order and push for criminal charges. That night, I got an email from Emily. No subject line, just a link. I clicked it. It was a GoFundMe page. The title read, Help Ryan Martinez Fight False Accusations. The description explained how a vindictive ex-girlfriend's father was using his wealth and connections to destroy an innocent entrepreneur. How Ryan was facing bankruptcy and homelessness because he dared to start a business. How all he needed was $15,000 for legal fees to fight back against corporate bullying. There was a photo of Ryan looking defeated, sitting on a curb. At the bottom, a plea. Please help me stand up to the powerful people who want to silence innovation. I called Emily again. I know, she said. My lawyer's already sent them a takedown notice. It's defamation. He's making you sound like some corporate villain. How many people have donated? 43. He's raised $2,000 so far. From who? Friends, family, people who don't know the truth. The GoFundMe stayed up for 2 more days before the platform removed it for violating their terms of service. But the damage was done. I started getting messages on social media, people I didn't know calling me greedy, heartless, a rich old man crushing a young entrepreneur's dreams. Victor found me on the deck one evening, staring at the ocean. Martha and I have been talking, he said. We think you should consider filing for a restraining order. Rachel mentioned that. It would give you legal protection. He violates it, he goes to jail immediately. I don't want any of this, Victor. I just want my peace. I know. But sometimes you have to fight for peace. A week later, Rachel called with news. Michael, I've been in contact with the FBI. The FBI? Ryan's fraud crosses state lines. He's been soliciting investors from multiple states using your address and name. That makes it federal wire fraud. The FBI's white-collar crime unit is interested. What does that mean? It means this just got a lot more serious for him. Wire fraud carries federal penalties, up to 20 years. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want Ryan in prison for 20 years. I just wanted him to leave me alone. But Rachel explained it wasn't about what I wanted anymore. He'd committed crimes, federal crimes, and the government had an interest in prosecuting. 2 FBI agents came to my house a week later. Special Agent Chen, no relation, and Special Agent Brooks. They interviewed me for 3 hours, went through everything, every phone call, every email, every piece of documentation. They took photos of my property, collected the LLC registration, examined the website. Mr. Chen, Agent Brooks said, we've identified at least 8 people who gave Mr. Martinez money based on his representations about your involvement. That's nearly $30,000 in fraudulent investments. And we believe there are more victims we haven't found yet. 3 days later, Emily called me, crying. Dad, Ryan showed up at my office today. Did you call the police? Security escorted him out, but before they did, he told me he knows where you live, that he's going to take what's his one way or another. Dad, I'm scared. He's not making sense anymore. I called Rachel. She called the FBI. They said they were moving up their timeline. 2 days later, my security camera alerted me at 6 in the morning. Motion detected. I opened the app expecting to see a deer or a neighbor's cat. Instead, I saw 3 men standing in my driveway. Ryan was one of them. The other 2 I didn't recognize, but they looked hard, dangerous, the kind of men who broke bones for a living. I called 911 immediately. 3 men are on my property. One of them has been warned to stay away. I think I'm in danger. Stay inside, lock your doors, officers are on the way. I watched through the camera. Ryan was talking to the men, pointing at the house, at the studio. One of them walked up to my front door, tried the handle. When it didn't open, he pounded on it, hard enough to rattle the frame. Open up, he shouted. We're here to collect. I stood in my living room, phone in hand, heart racing. Through the window, I could see them. The 2 men who weren't Ryan looked like they'd done this before, like intimidation was their business. Mr. Chen, you owe Ryan Martinez $30,000. You've got 2 minutes to open this door, or we're coming in. Victor appeared from next door, his own phone out. I'm calling the police, he shouted. Get off this property. Old man, mind your business. The police arrived 4 minutes later. 3 cars, 6 officers. It happened fast after that. The 2 men with Ryan tried to run, didn't make it far. Ryan stood there, frozen, like he couldn't believe it was happening. But here's what Ryan didn't know, what none of them knew. I'd been documenting everything, every threat, every contact, every fraudulent claim. And 2 weeks earlier, I'd given all of it to the FBI. Not just for fraud, for extortion, for racketeering, for the kind of charges that carry real time. The 2 men with Ryan were arrested immediately. Turns out they were loan sharks out of Portland, with warrants. Ryan was arrested too, charged with criminal trespass, harassment, and held for federal authorities. Agent Chen called me that afternoon. Mr. Chen, we executed search warrants on Ryan Martinez's apartment and vehicle. We found evidence of an extensive fraud operation. He wasn't just targeting you. He's run this scam with at least 4 other properties. 4 other people he convinced to be fake investors. We're talking about $150,000 across multiple victims. Rachel called the next day. Michael, the U.S. Attorney's office is filing federal charges, wire fraud, identity theft, extortion. He's looking at 8 to 12 years. I sat with that information for a long time. 8 to 12 years. A young man's life, effectively over. And part of me, the part that used to work in a hospital, that used to see people at their worst and still tried to help them, felt something like sadness. But mostly, I felt relief. Emily came to visit a week later. We sat on the deck, watching the ocean. The storm had passed, and the day was clear, cold, beautiful. I'm sorry, Dad, for all of it. For dating him, for not seeing who he really was, for giving him your address that one time when I thought it didn't matter. You couldn't have known. I should have. There were signs. The way he always had an excuse when he couldn't pay rent. The way he'd borrow money and forget about it. The way he'd charm people and then turn on them. I saw it with his friends, with his family. I just thought I was different, that he'd never do it to me. People who enable others, I said, they do it because they care. You cared about him. That's not a character flaw. Mom used to say I had a savior complex. Your mom was usually right. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. The studio looks good, Emily said. Are you going to finish it? I am. I'm signing up for another painting class in the spring. I'm not any good, but I'm doing it anyway. She smiled. Mom would have liked that. The trial happened 6 months later. I didn't attend, but Rachel kept me informed. Ryan pled guilty as part of a deal. 8 years, eligible for parole after 5. The loan sharks got longer sentences, 12 and 15 years respectively. Emily started therapy. She told me about it one evening over the phone, said she was learning about boundaries, about why she'd stayed with Ryan so long, about the patterns she'd inherited from her mother, the tendency to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. Your mom learned to set boundaries, I told her. It took her years, but she learned. You will too. The studio was finished by spring. I'd hired a local carpenter to help with the final touches, proper lighting, a skylight, built-in storage for supplies. I hosted a small gallery show, displaying paintings from my class. Nothing professional, just landscapes and still lifes from a 64-year-old beginner. But people came, neighbors, friends from the painting class, even the woman who ran the cafe in town. Emily flew in for the opening. She stood in the studio, looking at Linda's name painted above the door in small, simple letters. Linda's Light Studio. She would have loved this, Dad. I hope so. Victor pulled me aside at one point. You know, Michael, a lot of people would have given up, would have let him have the address, given him the money, anything to make it stop. I almost did. But you didn't. You stood your ground, and you protected yourself. That takes courage. It took stubbornness, I said. I'm too old to let someone steal my peace. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I sat on the deck with a glass of wine. The sun was setting, painting the ocean orange and pink. An osprey flew by, hunting in the shallows. Everything was exactly as it should be. Emily came out, sat next to me. What are you thinking about? She asked. Your mom. The plans we made, the life we didn't get to live. But also this, what I built here, what I managed to protect. Do you forgive him, Ryan? I thought about that. Forgiveness. Such a complicated word. I don't hate him anymore, if that's what you mean. I think he's sick, desperate, enabled by people who should have let him fail years ago. I hope prison gives him time to figure himself out. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean I'd ever trust him again or let him back into my life. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself from them. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. She nodded. My therapist says something similar, that boundaries and compassion can coexist. They have to, I said. Otherwise you spend your whole life either being a doormat or being cruel. There's a middle path. We sat there as the sun disappeared, as the stars came out, as the ocean kept doing what it had done for millions of years, indifferent to human drama. The next morning, Emily flew back to Portland. I drove her to the airport, hugged her goodbye, told her I loved her and was proud of her. Then I drove back to the coast, to my bungalow, to my studio, to the life I'd fought to keep. That afternoon, I stood at my easel with a fresh canvas, trying to capture the way the light hit the water in the morning. I wasn't any good at it, not really. The colors were wrong, the proportions off, the waves looked more like mountains. But that wasn't the point. The point was the trying, the process, the act of creating something that hadn't existed before. Linda would have understood that. She'd always said the joy was in the doing, not the having. That the best paintings weren't the ones that sold or won awards, but the ones you made on Tuesday mornings when no one was watching, when it was just you and the canvas and the light. I painted for 3 hours that day. When I finished, I stepped back and looked at what I'd made. It wasn't good, but it was mine. And in this place I'd fought to protect, that was enough. The ocean kept crashing against the cliffs. The osprey kept hunting. The fog rolled in and out like breath. And I kept painting, kept walking the beach, kept having coffee with Victor and Martha, kept living the quiet life I'd earned. Ryan was gone, the drama was over, and all that remained was the peace I'd refused to surrender. Some people might call that a victory. I called it Tuesday.